Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week we are covering Chapter 13 in The Ultimate History of Video Games by Stephen L. Kent. This one is called A Case of Two Gorillas.
Ooh, we're going to get to that at the very end.
Oh, we're going to...
That's the way this chapter is structured.
We have begun en media res.
En media... Ooh, yeah,
which is where you start at the end of a thing, and then we say, well, how did we get here?
Oh, that's what we're doing now?
That's what we're doing now. We're starting en media res.
I mean, 7 episodes in, it's really changed us.
Yeah. We're pros now at storytelling.
Oh, yeah. Watch out. I bought a recorder. Here we go. We're going to start today with handheld games. Specifically handhelds that use LED technology, which is light-emitting diodes. I learned that, which is exciting. Mm-hmm. It started with Mattel. They introduced the world to handheld games in 1976 when Michael Katz, the marketing director at Mattel, told the engineers he wanted to build a game the size of a calculator.
How big were calculators in 1976?
I mean, probably pretty big, but...
They have pocket calculators? When was the first pocket calculator?
Oh, yeah, look that up real quick. I'll keep going. They were sports-themed games only, and they used LED technology. The screen had several rows of LEDs that players can control up, down, or side to side. And the game also detected if the lights touched. So as simple as it was like perfect for the beginning of handheld games. Katz decided that the toy could either be marketed as football or racing, and he decided to go with racing because Mattel already had a football game in the works.
Gotcha. Pocket calculators, 1970.
Nice. Good to know.
Yeah.
Was that the one with the little solar bar on top of it?
I don't know. I know that is when, according to Wikipedia, by 1970, a calculator could be made with just a few chips of low power consumption, allowing portable models powered from rechargeable batteries.
That's right. That's with the little solar strip on the top. That always made me feel good, like I was calculating and saving the environment at the same time.
That's right.
Katz's team made no effort to make the lights in the game look like cars. That's very important. They were just little LED boxes on a vertical plastic strip, and you had like 3 lanes, and you were moving the car between lanes to like dodge objects coming at you. And the object of the game was to guide your light from the bottom of the strip to the top for 4 times, for 4 screens, and each time you did that was a lap in the game. And the game was called Auto Race. This is a time of life where you just call things what they were.
You could have called it anything, and I would have believed you that that's also what it was.
Yeah, they're like, Autobahn? No, that's too specific. Auto Race. After Auto Race, Mattel released Football, which was essentially the same thing, except instead of going up and down, you were going side to side.
The old switcheroo.
Yeah, and there was 10 lanes and going vertically, and that was the 10 marks of the football field, 10-yard marks. Auto Race sold for $25, and Football was $35, and they were a huge success. They generated more than $400 million in sales.
Wow.
$25,
$150 in today's money.
Dang.
$25 in 1973.
So that was like buying a new Nintendo 2DS.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's a pretty big deal.
Very different than what those two things do now. Mattel actually formed an electronics division because it was so successful, and then they made other sports games, including basketball, hockey, baseball, and eventually the Intellivision game console.
The Intelligent Television.
That's right. We talked about that last episode, I believe, right?
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now... Oh, by the way, this is my episode. I should mention that. I'm talking a lot this episode, right?
Oh, yeah, because you did the research for this one.
Yeah, and then we split it because these chapters 13 and 14 were very dense chapters, and we thought we should make them each their own episode. We want to give them their due.
That's right, yeah.
So next we're going to talk about the game Simon. Remember Simon?
I do remember Simon because I was alive when it came out.
That's right.
He said... He lied.
In 1975, when Magnavox filed a lawsuit against Bushnell saying he stole the idea of Pong, remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Well, in an ironic twist of events, Ralph Baer attended the 1976 trade show and stole an idea of a portable game from Bushnell.
It's just thievery back and forth.
Revenge. Just sweet, sweet revenge.
Revenge stealing.
Bushnell's toy had a row of lights that flashed in patterns and made sounds that the player had to repeat. So, it would be like beep, boop, and then you'd match it. But with no sound at this point. This is just lights. It's important. Bear did the same thing with a company called Marvin Glass Associates, but they replaced the sounds with musical notes, which I didn't even think that you'd put much thought into that, but they put a lot of thought into these musical notes. They had 4 bright colored buttons that flashed and coordinated with the musical notes. And Bear specifically chose the musical notes C, G, E, and B because those are the notes of a bugle, and they sound harmonious no matter what order you play them in.
Oh, interesting.
So
So
music theory in there.
was it like the notes would show up at random too, right? So like the sequence was randomized, so you needed it to sound good no matter what.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
had to make it sound good. And actually there were there's 3 different play modes of the game. You'd play a 3-note pattern, so one of the buttons just wouldn't be in use.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 4-note pattern where all the buttons were in use. And then there was a player versus player mode where you had to do a pattern, and then your friend had to do a pattern and go back and forth. And then, or enemy. Maybe it's an enemy that you're playing this game
well,
with.
if you're competing.
That's right. It should be your enemy, actually.
PvP.
All conflict should be solved with the game Simon, is what we've decided. And the game was a huge success in 1977 after they sold the game to Milton Bradley Electronics. And they already were in the electronic games with the Comp 4, the electronic version of the board game Mastermind. That was Milton Bradley's first foray.
Okay, they had an
into
electronic
video games.
Mastermind.
Yeah, I'd never played Mastermind.
I vaguely remember Mastermind. I can't remember though. Really?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'm like, did I see? It was like, sounds like one of those games you'd see a commercial for, like Crossfire as a kid.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen a commercial for Mastermind.
Yeah, I think it was on one end, one of the players had like a sequence of like colored pegs that the other player couldn't see, and then the other player was to guess what they were, and they had a certain number of guesses, basically, kind of like Battleship, where you like guess where they are. Only Battleship is in like 2 dimensions, and Mastermind was only in 1 dimension.
You know, I think you nailed it. I'm just looking at it right now. It's a very tiny little game too, so it would be perfect for to turn into electronics.
Yep.
So
yeah, because then you wouldn't have. There's like tons of little pieces that you don't really need, especially if you had it in electronic form. Then that's like the superior version, because then you have all these little pieces you can lose.
It looks a little bit like a cribbage board.
Yeah,
the game does.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that's we should play Mastermind. But you know, if it's still maybe the electronic version, I can't keep track of pieces to a game. Important thing about Simon, though, going back to it, is Atari never sued for the rights to this. And when asked why, Ralph Baer didn't think they had a patent for it. It was just like a thing they brought to the show, just thinking, let's just show this off, but we don't think you can make any money from it. And turns out you can.
Yeah,
make a lot of money from it.
It's going to be real successful.
Yeah, handheld games were extremely popular in the late 1970s and early 1980s. And with the success of VCS ports of arcade games came handheld ports of arcade games in stores shortly afterward.
Oh, my mom used to talk about, whenever I talk about video games, her like go-to relate was like, oh, my brother had a football game in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she's like, so my uncle had one of those handheld like football games.
I got to tell you, that's funny that you mentioned that, because when I was a kid shopping for video games for my Game Boy Advance at the time, my mom's like, Frogger, I know Frogger, we're buying Frogger. Like, that was her big thing, was we were getting that game.
Yeah.
With these ports, Nintendo and another company called Mego Electronics released 2 lines of credit card sized toys with liquid crystal screens. And Mego Timeout series had original games they made like Exterminator, Fireman, and Flagman. But meanwhile, Nintendo introduced original characters and ideas. This is where Mr. Game & Watch came from.
Oh,
the
yeah,
Game & Watch series. Yeah.
They made all those Game & Watch. And those look like DSs, too, if you look at them. Like, some of them had 2 screens and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're cool. Like, you can tell the DS, like the DS design is definitely inspired from the Game & Watch handhelds.
They also had a very simplified version of Donkey Kong and other Nintendo arcade hits on there, but I actually wrote in parentheses that, to me, Mr. Game & Watch was one of the best Smash Brothers characters.
Oh, his bacon move is unstoppable.
Because he's also just so different from all the other characters. So unique. I loved playing in the Mr. Game & Watch stage. That was one of my favorite stages because it was so chaotic.
Yeah, that one's great.
Tabletop games were made too, and these are larger than a handheld, and they almost look like mini arcade cabinets. And Nintendo and Tiger Electronics made these, but the best company to make these was Coleco.
The old Connecticut leather company.
Yeah, that's right. I'm so amazed that you remembered that. The Connecticut leather company, Coleco, almost went bankrupt in 1976 with the collapse of the home Pong generation of games. They really put all their eggs in that basket.
Well, this is a trend that we'll see a couple of times of like games really taking off and then crashing. So it happens a couple of times in the history.
Yeah, Arnold Greenberg, if you remember, the Greenberg brothers were the ones that ran Coleco. And Arnold was the one that he was the idea man, okay? And he was impressed with handheld games and came out with an electronic quarterback game after Mattel released football. And the big thing here was electronic quarterback was cheaper and had more features than football, which is the way you sell a product.
Yep.
You know? Greenberg was very aggressive in developing new products. He even hired former Mattel exec Michael Katz, remember? To lead Coleco's marketing department. So he stole Michael Katz from Mattel. And they designed PvP handhelds and got licenses to design miniature tabletop versions of Pac-Man and Donkey Kong.
I bet those sold like hotcakes.
Oh, yeah.
And hotcakes sell pretty well.
Hotcakes. I mean, I think the hotcake market is pretty steady.
Hotcake markets and gangbusters.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
I love us. Okay. By 1980, the handheld market started to fade. This is important. But Greenberg didn't care because he now had his sights set on creating a home system that could play arcade quality games at your house.
This is something that would be chased for like a decade and a half, starting in about 1980, where it would be like every new console that came out would be like, it's like an arcade in your home. We have arcade quality games in your home. They don't do that. That's not a selling point anymore, but like for a good long time, it's like the whole goal is like arcades in your home.
Yeah, which I think is great. I mean, because I do like the idea of going to an arcade, and now you grab a beer and you go to an arcade, which is fun. But you can also do that from your house, and it's really rad too. These were miniature arcade games he built, by the way, because the big thing about Coleco is he had licenses for all major companies. He had licenses for Sega, for Bally Midway, for Exidy, for Century, for Universal, and most importantly, Nintendo. He owned the licenses to have all those games in miniature versions.
Wow.
But he also he saw how successful Activision was, and so he's like, we're going to become a third-party publisher, but instead of creating new games, he got the licenses for all those companies to convert their arcade games into cartridges for the Intellivision and the VCS. So he's playing every market.
Oh, yeah, this guy.
He knows what he's doing.
He's selling games across all the consoles, even his own. He'll make games for the competition because he knows he's going to make money on it.
And he's going to make so much money. And he decided to program games for the 2600, which is the VCS, and the Intellivision, while at the same time designing a new system. And that system was called the Colecovision, which might be one of my favorite names for any console to come out. It just sounds so cool.
Connecticut Leather Company Vision.
I mean, it would have been better to do that way. You're right. You know what? I take it all back. Let's change it officially to Connecticut. I've just made up my name.
The Coleto Leather Company.
The Coleto Leather Company Vision. Oh, man. I got to ask my dad if he could design Coleco. ColecoVision took 2 years to develop. Greenberg told retailers about it, though, towards the end of 1971, and he unveiled it at the January Consumer Electronics Show in 1982 and then shipped it in July. So they developed it for a year, and then he really started building hype for it and getting it going.
Nice.
It had been 5 years since Atari began developing VCS, and all the parts were now much cheaper, which is very important when they built ColecoVision, because even though ColecoVision still had the same 8-bit processor, the 8K of RAM, and the 16K of video RAM, like other consoles, including the VCS, Coleco could afford a chip with memory mapping and frame buffers. And I don't know what that means.
Which helps you do better games, I guess. I'm not really sure about memory mapping. I know frame buffers is a place for a computer or video game console to store what's on the screen, like before it goes to the screen, which can help you with like if you like everything has frame buffers now, but like if you wanted to do something to the final image before it got to the screen, you'd use a frame buffer.
That would make sense because Atari did not have that with the Stella. And as a result of that, ColecoVision had smoother animation, and it did look more like an arcade than Atari did. So maybe that's what those did, is they didn't have more power, they cleaned up the graphics.
Yeah.
So ColecoVision chipset was from Zilog, was the name of the company? I think it's Zilog. And was so advanced, it could even handle video images.
Holy moly.
Yeah, which was pretty crazy. So when Hasbro engineers started to experiment with interactive video in 1985, they used a modified ColecoVision console to do it.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. You could have video in the background playing with computer graphics on top of it, which is what made it something that people wanted to experiment with. So they could have, like, I don't know, in the 80s, like a hair metal video going on, and then you're playing Pong on top of it. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. The big problem at this point was Colecovision ain't got no games.
Oh, that's the classic. This is how you lose.
The 2600 had more than 100 games by 1982.
Dang.
Yeah, to solve this, Coleco produced small games with strong followings like Ladybug and Mr. Do and Cosmic.
Wow,
Yeah.
I remember those.
Mm-hmm.
He said, shaking his head.
Avenger and Venture were also two of those games because Coleco had a good relationship with Sega that allowed them to use the Zaxxon cartridge, which had excellent 3D effects. So they were more technologically advanced at this time, but I think in different ways, not like your standard like more power ways. Like we're using new technology across the board.
Yeah.
Katz's marketing team even invented a way to compete with Atari by creating an adapter that would let you play Atari 2600 games on the ColecoVision.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. So if you bought a ColecoVision, you could just play your 2600 games on it. So there was no reason to buy an Atari 2600.
Yeah, they just really shut down Atari 2600.
Oh, wow.
ColecoVision at the time cost $195, and the 2600 dropped to $135 in preparation for a new Atari console.
Yes.
Yeah, which I believe we will get to next week.
Yes, we will.
What really sold ColecoVision was a 6-month exclusivity contract with Nintendo for Donkey Kong.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, so Arakawa, if you remember, he was the guy that ran Nintendo of America, gave Greenberg and Coleco the deal because he felt they were already established and good at marketing games as a third-party publisher. And he was right. They did home mini arcades and ColecoVision cartridges as Nintendo products.
This is so crazy because it's nuts to me to think that Nintendo characters and games would be on anything but Nintendo consoles.
Yeah, at this time.
This was before the NES, so they didn't have anything else to put it. Like they didn't have their own thing to put it on.
Because now they've been like super proprietary, right,
yeah.
the whole time until recently when they finally released like Super Mario Run.
Yeah, Animal Crossing is on
Pokemon Go.
Yeah, they're branching out a little bit into like mobile, iOS and Android stuff, but. Yeah, for the longest time, it was like, if you want to play Nintendo characters, you're getting a Nintendo console.
I never played an Animal Crossing game. Have you played the Animal Crossing one for mobile?
I played the first one for GameCube.
Is it fun?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's one of those games that there's like lots of stuff to do, and then you sort of realize that you're not really doing anything.
Yeah.
You're just like, I've played this game for 200 hours and I've done nothing.
It's like Stardew Valley. Is that what
it's very similar to Stardew Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like that. Or like kind of like a Harvest Moon kind of thing where you're just like, I've just been harvesting my fruit from my trees and paying off the forced debt upon me from the store owner. And like, it never really ends. But it's fun and the characters are always cute. Anyway.
I bet you someone is screaming into the microphone right now like, no, Stardew Valley's like Animal Crossing. It came first.
Yeah.
We have a big foreshadowing alert right now.
Oh, okay.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
So at this time, Howard Lincoln, remember him? He was the lawyer at Nintendo of America, was in charge of creating the contract for this licensing deal with Coleco. Most contracts at the time had a clause that said the original company would accrue all legal costs related to the license. In this case, Nintendo would be responsible for any legal troubles.
Okay.
Howard Lincoln didn't see this as necessary and was like, no. And he
Let's
removed
take
it.
this out.
And then Coleco quickly signed the agreement because the President Yamachi of Big Nintendo in Japan, of the corporation, said, you guys need to sign this agreement. You're making stuff right now. And they signed it without looking at it first.
Oh, no.
And this will be very important in about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, start the timer.
The agreement was Coleco paid Nintendo an undisclosed amount of money and promised royalties of $1.40 for every Donkey Kong cartridge and $1 for every tabletop machine they made. And ColecoVision had an incentive to purchase the system because it went on sale in 1982, and after 6 months, Coleco began to sell VCS and Intellivision versions of Donkey Kong. So
they were selling all the Donkey Kongs to everybody.
ColecoVision, when it came out, for 6 months was the only console with Donkey Kong. And then after 6 months, they're like, well, we're going to sell it to these other systems, but we're now making even more money.
Time exclusivity is still waiting for my Destiny strikes.
Yeah, right? I know. Oh, man, you'll be waiting on those forever, my friend. They came in Destiny 1, and I'm like, they just announced Destiny 2. And I'm like, am I going to play these now? Okay. Fortune magazine wrote about Coleco that the year the ColecoVision came out, they doubled their sales to over $500 million and quintupled earnings to about $40 million.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So Coleco was doing pretty well.
You were all right.
All right. Now we're going to talk about the whole reason that this chapter exists, and it's called the Battle of Kongs.
Okay.
And it starts with O.R. Rissman, president of Tiger Electronic Toys. He saw Donkey Kong while visiting Tokyo in the summer of 1981, and he liked it so much that he asked Universal if he could have the license to make a game based on King Kong and essentially steal the gameplay, but make it
From Donkey
King
Kong?
Kong. Yeah, but make it King Kong.
Ooh, man, that could have been a big deal because, like, having an actual licensed King Kong game,
Oh.
even if it's the same gameplay, that might have been able to steal their thunder.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been able to Fortnite their PUBG.
It might be able to Fortnite their PUBG. We'll find out in minutes
All right.
what happens.
Can't wait.
Oh, yeah. Loretta Cifuentes worked at Universal MCA as the vice president involved in licensing properties like King Kong, and she received Rissman's request. And before you gave out a license at this time, if you worked at Universal, you would check all the trademarks that were happening right now with your products. And at the time, they ran a trademark search and discovered like there were several minor uses of King Kong. Like the way I thought of looking at it, like maybe a restaurant's got like a King Kong billboard or something like that, or something like that, where it's not. You're using our licensed product, but we're not going to go after you for it.
This is
There's
not
no point.
worth us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the time, they didn't pursue legal action because there was very little activity in licensing King Kong, and Universal's like, it's fine. Fully unaware of Donkey Kong, though. Universal granted Tiger the license to King Kong in September of 1981. They did not know at all about Donkey Kong. Nintendo of America began to sell Donkey Kong in July of 1981.
Oh, so Donkey Kong came first.
Donkey Kong came 2 months before the license was sold. And that's not even the game, that's the license.
That's going to be important.
Yeah, by October, the game was selling at a rate, this is Donkey Kong, of 4,000 arcade units a month, which is pretty crazy. That's a lot. Yeah. And you think they're probably selling each one of those for about $4,000.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's a lot of math that I'm not ready to do right now. Cifuentes ran another trademark search in January of 1982, and she saw the pending agreement between Nintendo and Coleco, and this is the agreement to purchase Donkey Kong, the license for Donkey Kong for Coleco, and then put it on mini arcades, and then eventually Colecovision, and then VCS and Intellivision. And she brought that to Universal Vice President Steven Adler, he was the guy in charge of licensing. And they went to an arcade to evaluate the game. And after analyzing the gameplay, they concluded that no one wanted to play King Kong. Tiger merely wanted to get a license to King Kong to sell Donkey Kong. There was no action discussed at this time, though, about Donkey Kong. They were just like, oh, he's just trying to steal this game and put our license on it. But I don't know if we should do anything yet. They're very slow in this process to get there. In April of 1982, Sid Sheinberg, president of MCA and Universal, heard about Donkey Kong and asked Robert Haddle, a lawyer with copyright experience working as the Universal vice president in charge of legislative matters, to play the game. And he took his kids to an arcade to play the game, and he decided that Donkey Kong's story of a giant gorilla carrying a woman to the top of a building came way too close to the story of King Kong. And he's got kind of a point.
That's pretty close, yeah.
I can see that. At this time, though, Sheinberg set up a meeting with Arnold Greenberg at Coleco to discuss Universal Studios investing in Coleco. So Greenberg thought, oh, we're about to get bought out, and I'm about to make a ton of money. Because at this time, a lot of different companies bought, like video game companies. Warner Communications bought Atari, which is why Nolan Bush now left. Gulf Western bought Sega. Like everyone, in Greenberg's mind, he's like, oh, I'm about to make a huge deal and make even more money. And the meeting was held. This is actually a quote from the book because this is a great way of saying it. The meeting was held on April 27th, 1982. It began with a splashy Hollywood luncheon and ended with Sheinberg threatening Arnold Greenberg. So he thought he was going to go in there being like, we're going to make a deal. And then Sid Sheinberg's like, we're going to sue you for the licensing rights to Donkey Kong.
Wow. He's like, I'm going to make money. And they're like, you're going to give us money.
Yeah. And you're going to, it gets pretty intense what they ask too.
Wow.
On April 1928, on April 28th, 1982, Universal sent telexes, which I think is like a telegram, right? I guess. To Nintendo and Coleco, claiming sole and exclusive ownership of all rights, except book publishing rights, and to the name, title, character, and story of King Kong and anything with Kong in it, like they owned it.
Mm-hmm.
Sheinberg demanded Nintendo and Coleco stop marketing Donkey Kong and destroy all of their inventory.
Wow.
That's what really stood out to me. He's like, I don't want you to just not only not sell it, like you have to destroy it.
You gotta get rid of these.
Mm-hmm. After considering his options, Greenberg decided to back down, and Universal Studios, because they were just so big and they had all these resources for legal troubles, that he's like, Coleco can't handle this. We can't do it.
Even if you can win that lawsuit, the fact that you're gonna have to pay to win that lawsuit, like just the amount of time and money you would have to spend on lawyers is like ends up not being worth it.
Yeah, you would just go bankrupt. So he decided to back down. But by May 5th, Greenberg agreed in principle, obligating Coleco to pay royalties to Universal, and the formal agreement was signed a week later. Right now, at Nintendo, Hiroshi Yamauchi, president of Nintendo Company Limited in Japan, got the news.
Mm-hmm.
And he was baffled and furious because first they had a really hard time breaking to the US market, if you remember, as a company.
Radar scope, not great.
No, not great. And then you got to convert that to the good stuff, you
Yep.
know, those Donkey Kong machines.
Yep.
And now they were being bullied by a larger company from America. So he was pissed. He's like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
Even Tiger, who went through all the legal channels, was in trouble because Handel thought the royalties were too low. And he had a meeting with Cifuentes about it, like some infighting at Universal. And on May 4th, Scheinberg demanded that Tiger submit its game for approval, or else the licensing agreement would be terminated. And Tiger sent their game the next day. They're like, here's the game. Oh my gosh, don't ruin our license.
Please don't.
Yeah, please don't. Howard Lincoln and Minoru Arakawa, the president of Nintendo of America, had a meeting with Universal Studios on May 6th. 1982. This is all happening in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
Greenberg kept pushing Nintendo to sign an agreement because he had already signed one behind their backs, which they actually, in the book, they kind of talk about, like, why is he pushing us so hard to sign this? This seems really weird.
Yeah.
Remember, though, 5 minutes ago, Nintendo had no liability vis-a-vis Coleco.
Oh.
Because that contract. But Universal didn't know that. And
geez.
Coleco didn't know that.
Coleco didn't know that they were the ones who would actually be sued.
They're liable.
Wow.
On May 8th, Scheinberg canceled Universal's agreement with Tiger, saying that Tiger's King Kong game was just a rip-off of Donkey Kong. After they played it, they're like, we're not going to... You're just clearly ripping it off.
A rip-off of a rip-off.
And this is very important. Then Tiger questioned Universal's ownership of the name. This is...
How do you do that? You're like, I don't think you actually own the name Kong.
Yeah. So during the May 6th meeting with Nintendo, Robert Handel, the lawyer at Universal, said he would have a chain of title proving Universal's claim of King Kong sent to Nintendo. That chain of title never arrived. Yeah, things were starting to get fishy. Howard Lincoln called the next week asking for the chain of title. Handel restated that Nintendo needed to pay royalties to Universal, but did not send the title. He's just like, you guys need to pay us. It's simple as that. Why would I send you the title? And it's like, this is weird. Minoru Arakawa had faith in Howard Lincoln. At this time, I think they became friends because they were definitely working together with those two other guys to market and send out the trucking guys from Seattle to send out games across the country. And even like Hiroshi Yamauchi, the Japanese president of Nintendo Company Limited, was like kind of like, are you sure about this Lincoln guy? Like, should we believe him? And Arakawa was like, no, I trust him. He's right. Like this, we should fight this in court, essentially. Wow. So this is when they decided to go to court. The next meeting took place when Lincoln called a meeting at Universal on May 21st, and Universal thought that Nintendo would concede, and they were very wrong.
No, they took it. They fought it.
Yeah, Lincoln and Arakawa just wanted to tell Universal to their faces that they had done the research and learned they were not liable, and that they questioned ownership of King Kong with Universal.
So it's like, not only do we not think you own this name, we also think that if you do own this name, you can't be suing us for it. You got to sue Coleco.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Like, we're pretty untouchable right now.
Wow.
And Scheinberg was not happy about this. He essentially said Nintendo better get ready to pay attorney fees because he said their litigation department turned a profit. And that's a big thing to say.
Yeah.
And that definitely comes up later. Realizing the case would go to court, Handel set up a meeting with Tiger Electronics again, stating, oh no, like, even though, like, we're going to go fight this with Nintendo, we should at least have someone using the King Kong licensing. So they gave a non-exclusive license to King Kong if they did three things. This is important. This is also kind of funny. This is what Universal thought would separate King Kong from Donkey Kong. 1, put a fire hat on the hero character. Make him a fireman. 2.
So basically turn that hat around. That's
Exactly.
probably what
Yeah,
ends up
turn
looking
it
like.
around. Make him a firefighter. 2, replace the barrels the ape threw with bombs, because that's more like King Kong.
Okay.
And then make the floors of the building horizontal instead of slanted. So if you
Okay.
do those 3 things, that means that
It's a whole
we're
new
good
game.
to go. It's a whole different game. O.R. Rissman showed the game to Handel at a Sears store in early June, and the changes were accepted. So they're like, all right, we're doing this. Here's the King Kong game. Here we go. On June 29th, 1982, Universal officially filed suit against Nintendo, claiming that they owned all the rights to King Kong by virtue of agreements with RoccoW Pictures, Inc., the studio that made King Kong,
Mm-hmm.
and Marion C. Cooper, the man who wrote King Kong.
Okay. So they were like, look, RoccoW and the author of this book said it's cool.
Yeah, we own this.
Yeah.
This is us. So it's all us. Universal also went after everyone Nintendo licensed Donkey Kong to, threatening litigation. So Universal wanted to make an example of Nintendo like no one else is doing it. And I think they said the only company that stayed with Nintendo was Milton Bradley. Everyone else backed down. But Universal never took Milton Bradley to court. Never did it. And we'll find out why in a second. Before the trial, Howard Lincoln and John Kirby, lawyers for Nintendo, went to Japan to take depositions from President Hiroshi Yamauchi and a young Shigeru Miyamoto.
Oh.
He showed them all the design drawings and how he created Donkey Kong. It's a beautiful moment. It made me happy.
The young Miyamoto.
I also like that anytime I say the name, I feel like Tyler goes, oh, yes.
Love Shigeru Miyamoto.
You gotta love
Who
it.
doesn't love Miyamoto?
The guy just wants to design toys. He's
Yeah.
a nice dude.
Yep.
While he prepared to go to trial, Howard Lincoln was also formally hired at Nintendo because he was actually not an official member, employed by Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And then he became the senior vice president of Nintendo of America rather than just outside counsel, which
Wow.
is a big title, I feel
Yeah,
like.
that's pretty
big title. The case was heard before Judge Robert W. Sweet of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, and the trial lasted 7 days, much like The Ring, 7 days. During the case, Kirby had a Nintendo employee play the game in court and compared the game with clips of the movie. So that's a pretty good way to break it down.
Yeah. You're like, see, this is our game. Here's the movie. I don't know if these are that similar.
Yeah, but as it turned out, something else came up. Universal did not own King Kong. In fact, no one owned King Kong. In 1975, Universal had taken RoccoW Studios to court, claiming that the original King Kong was more than 40 years old and therefore public domain.
Wow. Universal disproved their own.
They disproved themselves, yeah.
Wow.
So so what ended up happening was
10 years before almost.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, 10 years ago, you guys said no one owns this.
How do they miss that? That's what I want to know. How does the legal department miss that you already took RoccoW to court and no one has rights to it?
Yeah, shouldn't that have come up when they were doing the research of like, they're like, hey, we need to prove that we own this. Let's go back to the court case, which says we own it. The court case that gives you the rights to use this says no one owns it.
I really think this whole case is a case of hubris.
Uh-huh.
Definitely Sid Sheinberg was like, we're making money because we're Universal and that's what we do. We make money. And this is how we're going to do it by suing you. I think in his mind, and a lot of people at Universal's mind, they thought that Nintendo would back down.
Yeah,
That they just
that's
accept
true.
it. And then when they said we're going to court,
Well, Coleco did, right?
yeah, I think what happened here is Howard Lincoln made a big gamble and came up all sevens. That's the lucky number, right? There you
Yeah,
go.
3 sevens.
He killed it. Judge Sweet ruled that Universal's claims were not valid. Also, this is important too, Sid Sheinberg's words about profiting through litigation were repeated somewhat ominously in the judge's summary of the case because John Kirby asked Sid Sheinberg if he said that on the stand when he crosses him to make the judge be like, see this guy, he's
See this guy, he just sues everybody.
he sues everybody. He's being a jerk right now. Make him not be a jerk.
Yeah.
So that's what. Then the judge said, "Oh wait, here we go. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself." Once Nintendo demonstrated that King Kong was public domain, Universal's efforts to scare companies that licensed Donkey Kong gave Nintendo grounds to seek extensive damages for lost revenues.
Ooh, so not only do you not own this, but because you stopped all these other people,
Mm-hmm.
you owe them, including us.
Yeah, so Tiger Electronics did not fare much better than Universal. Judge Sweet ruled that Tiger's King Kong game infringed on Donkey Kong and let Nintendo choose to collect statutory damages or Universal's profits from licensing the game. Nintendo chose to collect the licensing fee of $56,689.41.
Wow, they really got wrecked here. That's
Yeah.
crazy because so then the game that they made to try to capitalize on the license that they thought they had ended up ripping off the thing that they were saying that was being ripped off.
Yeah.
It is I, the Ripper Offer.
The Ripper Offer, not the Rippy.
And so, yeah, it is I, the Ripper, not the Rippy. And so Nintendo not only gets to get the damages for not being able to sell the games that Universal stopped them from selling, but also the game that you were going to make with this license that you don't own is a ripoff of the game that we made that you thought was a ripoff of the license you don't own.
Oh, yeah.
This is great.
It's a mess. That's why I'm trying to go slower, because it's kind of a little confusing.
Oh,
but
man.
Judge Sweet's decision also made Universal liable to answer to the companies it had threatened for royalties. These included Coleco, Atari, and Ruby Spears, the company that did the Donkey Kong cartoon show.
Oh, jeez.
So all these people were able to get there's the same kind of damages for lost revenues from Universal. Regarding Nintendo's counterclaims against Universal, Nintendo's counterclaims did not go to court until May 20th, 1985.
Oh, that's a while later.
Things move slowly in courts, if you didn't know. On July 29th, 1985, Judge Sweet ordered Universal to pay Nintendo $1.8 million for legal fees, photocopying expenses, costs incurred creating graphs and charts, and lost revenues.
Photocopying expenses. I like
Those
that.
photocopies can be expensive in the 80s, you know?
Yep.
By the time the case concluded, video games as an industry had nearly vanished. And Coleco was in the business of selling dolls.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a big old explosion here.
Yeah, this is a very important case, and it's right before the fall.
Oh,
so
that's what's next.
That's what's
next week.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of interesting, because all this stuff was done, and then by the end of it, it's like no one's making money on this stuff anymore.
Nobody. It's like burn after reading. You see that? We're just like by the end of the movie, you're just like, wow, none of this mattered at all.
Yeah, I love that. That was so funny at the end of the movie. Yeah, but anyway, that's the case. The case of two gorillas.
Wow. And so next week we'll be covering the video game crash of 1983, which is a pretty big, pretty meaty topic in terms of video game history. So we wanted to give it its own episode, and we wanted to give it its due. We'll be following along with the book, but hopefully we'll have some other kind of outside sources go along with it too, because it's a pretty pivotal moment in video game history, and it really sets up for a pretty big revival.
And I think, Tyler, we're gonna have a movie night.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch
Atari Game Over.
Documentary movie night. Yeah, it'll be fun. But Tyler, what have you been playing?
Still on that Destiny train. I'm finally hit light level 370, so I can do the new raid.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited to do that. The hard part is getting 6 friends together who are also of that level.
Just wait until I get that gaming PC, Tyler.
Yeah, then we're gonna need you.
It's going down for real.
It's going down for real.
Destiny, and we're all playing Destiny.
Yep.
That's the song. That's what that actually was.
We also played Detroit Become Human. Kelly and I played that.
I watched a little bit of that with you guys. That was fun.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a cool game.
If you like the Heavy Rain game or Beyond Two Souls, those are also games made by Quantic Dream and David Cage. If you liked those, as flawed games as they were, if you like the idea, Detroit is definitely the best version of those games. Like, it is definitely.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
They have learned a lot from Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit really shows. So if you like that, it's great. Very story driven, and after every chapter, it shows you all the different choices that you could have made. It doesn't show you like what happens if you made a different choice, but it says like, hey, you made a choice here, and here's what happened because you made that choice, and then you can sort of see how the tree goes. And it makes you want to go back and play again so you can make other choices so you can see the other parts of the tree. And then you can just see how complex the story is, and it's super cool.
That's a glowing review. When I asked you about it earlier today, you didn't tell me it was your favorite out of the other 3.
Oh, yeah. It's my favorite out of those 3 for sure. I really liked Heavy Rain more than Beyond Two Souls. But, yeah, it's definitely my favorite out of those 3.
You heard it first here, folks.
Boom.
Glowing review. Whoa, we said it at the same time. That's weird. What are we on the podcast co-host wavelength? I feel alive. Any other games you're playing right now? League.
I always play League of Legends. That's a standby. The League of Legends is really fun right now because there's been a patch recently that has shaken up the metagame, and nobody knows what's happening. And so watching professional games,
this might be a great time for me to jump in if no one knows what they're doing.
Oh yeah, no one knows what's going on.
I mean,
a great time to jump
make sure
in.
that's on my because I have it on my laptop. Well, it's free.
Yeah,
I should say I'm not like Mr. Moneybags over here, but yeah, we need to play that together sometime.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. I have been picking up Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, back into it.
Yeah, so I bought this game at Best Buy I think 2 years ago for $20, which was weird because I hadn't bought a game at Best Buy in years. Actually, it was probably like a year ago. Actually,
neither have I.
Yeah, it was a strange feeling.
Everything comes from Amazon now.
Yeah, right. It was it's just Amazon's physical store, and I bought that and I played it and it was fun. But I'm not a real big like MMO guy. But I realized with Elder Scrolls Online, the story is just really good. Like even the side quest stories, like I'm really into it, and I've kind of been playing it like I've been playing a movie almost. Like I just play a mission or two in the main quest line, and I'm like, this is really interesting, and then I just kind of take a break and I come back, and it's fun.
Nice.
The MMO mechanics aren't really doing it for me. Like I don't really.
Is
care.
it like World of Warcraft? Like you press a thing and you wait and like.
Well, no, it's like live. Like you hit the right trigger and he swings his weapon, and you got like powers. But my guy is built like a tank, and I built him like a tank because online I saw as my class, it's like one of the best things to do. But I think that was kind of a mistake because it's really boring. Like he's just got like one really good attack that he uses over and over again, and I'm just spamming it. It's not a lot of diversity, so I'm thinking I might buy some skills I don't need and switch things up a bit just to have more fun.
Yeah,
because it's a fun game. But I've been playing that, and then I've been playing Destiny as well. But I'm having a little bit of a lonely falling out right now.
Destiny slump.
It's hard on Xbox, man. Yeah. It's really hard. There's like not a lot of people. Those exclusivity deals really do turn people away.
Yeah,
I think more than get people to buy a console.
Yeah, I think you're right. The stuff that's exclusive to PS4 right now becomes unexclusive when Forsaken comes out.
Okay.
So, joke's on them. Xbox gets more content than PlayStation does when Forsaken comes out.
Oh yeah,
because we're getting all those strikes.
They're getting all those strikes that they already had. Take that.
Take that.
I'm even wondering now if I even want to buy Forsaken on my Xbox.
Oh yeah,
because I'm like wondering if I should just get it all on the PC so I can play with you.
Well, if you're playing on PC by then, I mean, you still got till September. But if you're playing on PC by then, you can kind of make that decision. I'm excited to play with you because I want to level up a hunter.
Oh yeah, we should do it. We're definitely gonna do it together. We're gonna bring my PC over here and we're gonna do this together.
Yeah,
like it'll be really fun. That was really fun. That one day we played Fortnite on separate screens.
Yeah.
Or Halo. It was fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. I think for me, my favorite video game moments, and it doesn't happen a lot anymore, is when I was in college and we'd have Call of Duty on. This is like Black Ops 1. Actually, no, it was before Black Ops 1. This is like Modern Warfare 2. And we would just pass the controller around. That was the fun way to play those games, I think. And I miss that. So that's what's fun about coming over here and playing games with you and your wonderful girlfriend, who I don't know if we should talk her name on the podcast.
I already said Kelly earlier.
Oh, you did? Well, we're breaking all the rules today, folks. Oh, I got a shout out.
Oh.
I want to get a big special shout out to Face Desk. You left us a 5-star review.
Oh, thanks.
They did. Thank you so much, Face Desk. Great name too. Sounds like so what I do every day at 3:00.
Face Desk.
Yeah. Thank you for the 5-star review, Face Desk, and thank you everyone that's tweeted at us.
Oh yeah.
Curtain Up tweeted at us. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been great, and Tyler and I are full of mirth.
Yes.
I'm trying to use big words today.
That was on the calendar, the word of the day calendar today.
The mirth, and what was a hubris. Hubris is a fun word.
That is a good one.
It's a good one. But you can always tweet at me at @mecoletta, tweet at Tyler at SneakerElf.
Mm-hmm.
You can email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. We're on Podaholics. You can leave us a 5-star review. That would mean the world to us. And thank you so much for listening. And is there anything you want to say to the listener before we can leave, Tyler?
Nope. I'm real excited for next week.
I am too. I'm so excited. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.